Hi, this is Griffin here, and I'm very excited to show you my new Panasonic GH3, which just arrived. I've been a big fan of the GH series. I have the GH1, I have the GH2 currently. So today I'll compare the GH3 and GH2 and show you some of the features that I'm excited about. So one, if we take a look at the body size difference, I have two different lenses on these right now, but you can see that the GH3 is slightly bigger, a little bit taller than the GH2. It does feel significantly heavier, and one of the reasons is that we have a much bigger battery in the GH3. And you know, it's always annoying to have a different battery between cameras, but it is nice that the GH3 battery, right here on the right, is significantly bigger. It holds a lot more. It's actually 1860 milliamp hours versus 1200 on the old battery. So that's exciting, and hopefully, I haven't found out yet if that just means the camera drains through a lot more battery much quicker, or if that'll be a nice, much longer battery life here. So everything is bigger here. We have bigger battery. They even throw in a bigger neck strap. This is about twice as big as the GH2 neck strap. Even the manual is pretty big. This manual is 101 pages, but they actually have an online, like a PDF version that's 319, because there's so much information about the GH3, it's hard to get through all of it in one manual. So I've looked through it, and I'm going to show you some of the things I think are important here. One thing that I really like about the new GH3 is all the additional ports. So on the GH2, all we have is this one little remote port that's kind of hiding behind my finger, but it's a sub-mini port. It's made for the microphone and for the remote, so it's smaller than a standard remote jack, which is kind of annoying, or a standard mic jack. On the new GH3, we have a full 1/8 inch size mic jack and an independent remote jack, which is really nice. So now I could use an intervalometer like this, a remote, and a microphone, and they've added, which seems like a pretty simple feature, but I'm very excited about it, is just a headphone jack. And I'll talk more in a minute about how you can monitor audio and what your various options are for that. And then of course you also have a mini HDMI port, which is handy for going out to a monitor. And then we have, unfortunately, a new USB jack. If I have that around here. Just slightly different shape than the old one, so although this actually looks like maybe it's micro USB. One of the most interesting things about the new GH3 is simply the fact that it has a new LCD. We can compare these here between the GH2 and the GH3. It's hard to tell on video, but it seems like the GH3 monitor is a little bit brighter. Of course, we're looking at two different things here, but it actually is higher resolution, so it comes across as a little bit more clear. It's a new OLED panel on the bottom here on the GH3 with over 600,000 dots on it, and the GH2 had like 460,000, I believe. So higher resolution screen. They've also kind of increased the clarity of some of the menu system. All of these numbers here just are a nicer font. So it looks like all around an easier to read screen, which is nice. We also have several new dials on the GH3. So there's this dial right here. My only complaint about it is that for some reason it's recessed into the grip right here, and it sticks out over here. So it's really easy to use on the left side, and it's kind of harder to use it on the right side, which seems strange that it's kind of hard to go all the way around. In fact, I kind of lose my grip on it. We also have this dial here, just like on the GH2, there was a dial, a thumb dial right here, but now you also have a front dial, so you can actually independently use your f-stop and your shutter speed on the GH2. It also has a touch screen, just like the GH2 did, but it is a higher, better sensitivity touch screen, which is nice, so it looks like it's a little bit easier to use. One of the most interesting features on the new GH3 is the fact that it has Wi-Fi, and if I push the first function button here, I can pull up the Wi-Fi settings. You can simply go to New Connection. I'm actually going to go to, I've set a connection as a favorite here, home Wi-Fi. So the GH3 can connect to a Wi-Fi that you have at home, or it can actually be a Wi-Fi hotspot on its own, so that's handy when you're in the field. If I was using the hotspot capability, I would just connect my phone to that same Wi-Fi system. But once they're on the same Wi-Fi, right now it's my home Wi-Fi, I can go to the Lumix Link app, which I've downloaded. It's free. It'll take a second to connect to the camera. You can see on the camera side it's telling me to connect. And now it says it's under remote control. And once I go to the live control tab on the app, you'll notice I can see in real time what the camera is looking at, which is pretty cool. And I can also set things like white balance. I can change it from the phone, so I can change it to a custom setting or to one of the presets. Then I could also change my, it's kind of slow a little bit sometimes. I could change the shutter speed. In fact, here we have a dial that shows I can change the f-stop and the shutter speed. So I could stop down with the aperture, and I could open up the shutter speed a little bit if I wanted. Now, this is all cool and everything, but once you start rolling, it's one thing with photos. You can take photos and keep taking photos, but once you roll video, you can't control it anymore on the iPhone. You kind of have to go back to the camera to turn it off. Now, the one thing you can do is in the menu, you can change how long it records. So if I go to recording settings, recording time, you could set this to, right now it's only set to 4 seconds. I think by default it's set to 3 minutes, but you can set it all the way up to 99 minutes. So that's one way you can control the recording from the phone, is you can start recording and then set a timer for how long it's going to go. I suppose the reason they do this is because once the camera's rolling, it does not want to be communicating with Wi-Fi anymore. So the Wi-Fi feature is pretty cool, although it's too bad that you can't live monitor it while shooting. You can't make any changes while shooting. But one thing you can do while shooting on the GH3 that you couldn't do on the GH2 was, I can start rolling here, I can actually change the ISO while rolling video, which is cool. You couldn't do that before, and that's a really nice new feature. You still can't change white balance, but of course you can change your shutter speed here with the back dial, and you can change your f-stop with the front dial. That's this one right here. So I'll stop rolling real quick and show you some of the other menu settings that I think are important on the GH3. We'll just we'll go through them here real quick. If I go into the menu and go, oh, and I should show you on the on this dial here, of course you can turn it, but it's also left, right, up and down arrows that you can use as well. So if I go to the main motion picture menu, and we'll start at the beginning, we have record mode. You can shoot now on the GH3 in QuickTime MOV. You can also shoot in MP4 or AVC HD, and I'll look a little bit more at those in a minute. Record quality, you can choose between various frame rates. The new GH3 can shoot up to 1080p in 60 frames per second, and it can shoot in several modes at 72 megabits per second, which is much higher. Exposure mode, chances are if you're like me, you'll probably want to set this to M, meaning that you can manually change the shutter and the f-stop, the aperture, while rolling. Let's see, we also have frame rate. Here's where you can do speed options. You can shoot 3 times faster if you want to use less space, if you know you're going to speed it up anyway. We also have, let's see, what's other important ones? Record highlight. There's no zebra stripes on the GH3, but when you turn on record highlight, you can see here it flashes in spots that are peaking or clipping. We also have that extended teleconversion option, which allows us to zoom in to the center of the frame, crop to the center of this frame. So now we're a little bit tighter. I can also turn that off here and go back to normal. We also have, let's see, here's an interesting feature, silent operation. Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like you want, of course I want the camera to be silent, but when I turn that on, all that does is it adds a touchscreen option. You can see this little camera icon here on the touchscreen. It lets you control all the things you can control with the dials, shutter speed, f-stop, ISO, but you can do it from the touch screen. The idea being that it won't make any noise. You know, may not make the clicking dial noise, but that's not really something I see myself using, so I figured I'd turn that off just to unclutter. You can also turn on the mic display, which for some reason it's not showing up right now. Here we go. Here you can see the levels for audio. You can also adjust the mic level. Here, compared to the GH2, only had 4 adjustment levels for the mic. Here we have 19, so much more fine-tuned. My only complaint is that there are several function buttons, and I'll get to these in a minute. You have function 1, function 2, 3, 4, and 5, even 2 on the touch screen, 6 and 7. But you can set all sorts of things, custom controls to those buttons. One thing you can't set to them is audio level, which seems like it'd be really nice to have, especially for a videographer, but you can't. You also have headphone sound here. Now this is interesting with the GH3. I have mine set to record sound. You can choose between real-time or record sound. Real-time will take the audio straight from the microphone and it goes right to your headphones and it's played in sync with real-time. But once you start rolling, the camera can't provide that anymore. It wants to provide audio, as I understand it, that's been processed through the compressor as it's writing it. So you actually get a slight delay, and that's what record sound is. So if you actually want to hear the audio while you're rolling, you need to go to record sound. The only problem is that it's a little bit delayed, a little bit annoying to hear it, but it's not, I think it's only like a quarter of a second. I mean, it's not too bad. Could be a lot worse, I suppose. Then let's see, we also have in the custom menu, what's important in here on page 4 is you can turn on histogram, you can turn on guidelines. There's also a place for highlight here, which is interesting. It's not the same highlight as while shooting. It's actually the highlight that shows up while you're playing back a file, which seems kind of unnecessary to me. You also have on page 6 all the function button sets. So here you can set, right now I have Wi-Fi, which is the default for function 1. There's quick menu number 2. I'll talk about that in a second. That's handy. And you can set the rest of these the way you want. Also here we have the eye sensor. This is important on page 7. Eye sensor, I hate the eye sensor on the GH2 and the GH3. It's this little guy right here. And if I had it on right now, actually I'll turn it on and show you how sensitive it is. Turn this on. And now if I'm just on a shooting screen, if I'm trying to show you the camera, and I put my hand, my hand's actually like 1.5 inches, 2 inches in front of that thing, but it turns off the monitor because it thinks I'm looking in the eyepiece. That can be handy, but I find it goes off all the time, which can be really annoying, you know, if you're holding the camera close to your body. So I go ahead and turn that off. You can change the sensitivity to low, but it's still pretty sensitive. Also in the settings here, you'll probably want to switch to on shoot without lens. The default is off, but that allows you to do things like lens whacking. I can take off my lens and still be shooting. I can use a lens that doesn't have electronic controls. There's a lot of reasons you might want that. Also in the settings is under setup. Of course, there's a lot of settings I'm not showing you, but most of these are pretty self-explanatory. On page 1 we have beep, and this is actually, by default it's on, and I'll let you hear this. I think it's kind of annoying. It's not for every button, but it's when you are rolling it makes that beeping sound. But chances are, if you're like me, you don't want to let everyone know you're rolling all the time, so turn that off. Here you also have your Wi-Fi settings, and headphone volume is here. You can choose. This is another one that I wish you could set to the function buttons, which you can't. Now I want to show you 2 settings in the menu that are kind of interesting that affect video, but they're not in the video settings. I noticed this with the ISO settings. Originally, it was, by default, it would just let me jump between stops. 200, 400, 800, 1600 ISO. I kind of like having these in-between ISOs though. And the way you can enable that, it seems kind of like they didn't intend for it to work this way. I don't know why this is not a video setting, but if you switch over to a photo mode, here I'm on manual photo mode, and I go into the menu, it's under, let's see, it's in the camera, like photo shooting menu. If I go in there and go to page 3, there is, or no, looking at the wrong one, page 4, ISO increments. Here in the photo settings, you can change it from 1 to 1/3 stops, and I changed it to 1/3, and interestingly that affects how the ISO works in video mode. So now that I'm back in creative movie mode, now I can click ISO and it's many more ISO options. I don't know why that's not a movie menu setting, it's just in photo. Also in photo, oh, I need to go back to photo mode to get to it. Also in the photo menu on page 3 is time-lapse, which is cool. Here you can do a time-lapse setup. It has a built-in intervalometer, so you can set a start time, set your shooting interval, and how many images you want to go. I think it can go up to, yeah, it looks like, actually it looks like about 10,900 or 9,999. And with that, you can do all sorts of time-lapse stuff. So I was excited because I thought that meant I could get rid of my time-lapse remote. I use this for time-lapse. I also use it just to set focus remotely. I thought with the intervalometer built into the GH3 and the Wi-Fi function that I could probably focus. Although what's interesting is the Wi-Fi function on the phone seems to be able to focus the kit lens, this 14 to 140 millimeter lens. It does not seem to work with I have this Sigma lens and an adapter. It doesn't seem to work with that, so I think I'll have to continue using the remote. The remote does, though, work on the GH3 with the with focusing on both lenses. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Obviously, I haven't covered image quality. I want to do some tests between the GH2 and GH3 to figure out how they compare. One thing I've noticed is that the GH3 does have one, if I'm in movie mode, it does have one higher stop of ISO. I can go all the way up to 6400. So I'll be curious to see how much noise that introduces and how effective that is. Of course, the GH3 is significantly more expensive. It's a $1,300 camera compared to the GH2, which right now I think you can get for maybe as low as $500 or $600 body only. So clearly a big investment, but even just simple features like headphone jack are just so handy for videographers. There's so many things here, Wi-Fi, that are interesting. Oh, one thing I forgot to show you was the various video modes. So just like the GH2, the GH3 has a quick menu, which is handy. Right now it's set to my function 2 button. If let's see, right now I'm not getting anything on the screen. What is going on here? Oh, it still seems to be booting up, which is weird because the GH3 is supposed to have a pretty fast boot up time. I think it's frozen. Let's turn it off and turn it back on. You know, I don't know if I've ever turned it off with the Wi-Fi still on. That may be what's messing it up right now. Okay, pop out that battery. Normally I've gone back into the Wi-Fi menu and terminated the connection. Maybe that was messing things up. But here in the quick menu, you can see how many different video settings there are right now. This bottom line is all MOV, the middle line is all MP4, and the top row is all AVC HD. So many of your old bit rates, like 12 and 20 megabits per second, are available in the AVC HD settings. MP4 seems to be generally higher bit rate, and then the MOV are your highest, 50 megabits and 60 or 72 megabits per second. Many of the 72 megabit ones are these all I or all intra frame recording modes. You also have, most of these are full HD, most of these are 1080 at 60p here. We also have 1080 at 30p with all I encoding. Here's 1080 at 24p. all sorts of options here, so many to choose from. And the quick menu is handy. You can choose between these things. You can, I actually have the custom quick menu set right here, where you can put, I've put the extended teleconversion in here, so I didn't need to set it to its own button. All sorts of things you can put in here, the histogram. So between the quick menu and all these function buttons, it seems like I can get to everything I need to get to pretty simply on the new GH3. So let me know in the comments what other questions you have. I know this was a long video, but I'm sure if you are really interested in the new GH3, hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what other questions you have, and soon I will put together a image comparison video between the GH3 and the GH2 here, and do something much more succinct than this. But I hope this helps, and thanks for watching.